What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. This is the channel where we sit down and cover different comic book stories from different comic book companies. Today, we're going to jump back over to Marvel Comics, and we're going to sit down and cover a sequel. A sequel to one of the worst Spider-Man stories of all time. If you remember a story called Sins Past, this story is called Sins Remembered. If you remember a story called Sins Past, well, today's video is covering the sequel to that story called Sins Remembered. Sarah Stacy is back, and Sarah Stacy is here to cause so many problems for Peter Parker and Mary Jane. It's just ridiculous. So I do hope you enjoyed today's very, very unfresh comic book story. If you do, hit that like button down below and subscribe. But here we go. So we pick up with Sarah Stacy. This is the daughter of Gwen Stacy and Norman Osborn, aka the Green Goblin. This picks up weeks after the last time we saw Sarah Stacy, where her twin brother and her found out that Norman Osborn was her real father, and her brother became the Grey Goblin. But we see her crying in a bathroom, but this is a way to bring Spider-Man to her. The reason why I say that is because that is when Peter Parker gets a call from some random doctor who tells Peter that Sarah tried to kill herself. So of course, Peter is going to go and meet her in Paris. Mary Jane doesn't go with him. But something else to remember from the past story is that Mary Jane knew that Gwen Stacy had slept with Norman Osborn and kept it a secret until the twins had returned. There is a set of pages where we see Peter Parker on the plane heading towards Paris so he can go and find Sarah. Honestly, nothing important happens here. It's just Peter being forced to sit in the middle of a random couple where they are giving him some love advice, and honestly, it is tying into what is going to happen in the mess of a thing called a story. But after getting through the introduction of the story, we actually pick up with Peter Parker arriving at the hospital. Of course, he is confronted by Dr. Gerald, who was the one who told Peter that is how Sarah tried to kill herself. This is also the moment you have Peter go on to tell us what happened in the last story. Peter was confronted by the twins who thought he was their father because Norman Osborn was kind of using them as a way to kill Peter Parker. Norman knew he was their father and they found out. It made Gabriel, the brother of Sarah, go mad and turn into the Grey Goblin. Also, the twins have a problem with aging, that they age at a faster rate. Peter gave Sarah a blood transfusion and it slowed down Sarah's aging problem, but of course, she is still aging at a fast rate. This leads us into the moment where you have Peter meeting Sarah for the first time since the last story. Of course, Peter tells Sarah that he was told that she was trying to kill herself. Of course, she says that is not true, but that she had a major headache that was caused thanks to her quick aging problem. She makes Peter feel bad because when he keeps doubting her, she tells him how bad her days have been thanks to her having powers and a quick aging problem. So of course, Peter apologizes and then tells her that he is going to take her home. Now, when they get home, well, we see that someone is watching them. This person calls up another person to tell them they have eyes on Sarah, but also how she has someone with her. Of course, he means Peter Parker. Of course, we get to see the home that she and Gabriel had grown up in. Now, this is important because Gwen Stacy had left the twins here in Paris, but Norman Osborn took care of the kids, kind of. Really more of him buying them the house, gave them maids, gave them butlers, and whatever else they need to survive here. Except apparently the twins scared away the butlers and the maids because of their aging and how they acted in the past. You finally have Peter Parker call up Mary Jane to tell her that he has landed safely in Paris, except when he begins to talk to her, that begins the stages of lying. He doesn't tell her that he is no longer staying in the hotel, that he is staying with Sarah and Sarah's old home. He won't tell her the number of the hotel, nor tell her where the hotel is at, but hangs up the call. While he was on the phone, Sarah was listening in on the other line. After the phone call, Peter does change into his Spider-Man outfit, swings into the city to clear his mind, and then you have Sarah take some more pills to help her with the headache problem. Honestly, the next section is more of Spider-Man going around town to clear his mind, or try to clear his mind. At the same time, to be helpful for the people in Paris. Except with everything he does, it ends up with him messing things up and causing more problems. So unfortunately, he has to head back home before he caused more problems in the city. So he was able to clear his mind with the current situation that he is in, thanks to Sarah and her problems. We didn't get the last 2 pages where you have Sarah watching the news in the morning, where the news are reporting everything Peter did last night as Spider-Man. Peter walks away to not deal with Sarah teasing him, except it is also the moment you have Sarah call up someone talking about making a drop and hoping that no one has to die when it comes to completing the drop. So the second chapter begins with Peter Parker walking around the home Norman Osborn gave to Sarah and Gabriel, which makes him wonder more about Norman Osborn that leads to him having a flashback. This flashback just shows that Norman Osborn was really cold towards his first son, Harry Osborn, but nothing really important to focus on for this story. It seems that Peter is trying to save Sarah before she dies, and that would be another person Norman Osborn had killed. At this point, Harry Osborn was dead in Marvel Comics. But back in the present day, we see Sarah walking in and giving us more details about what her life was like back when she and Gabriel were young. Of course, she told us that she and her brother had scared off all the people Norman Osborn had hired to help raise the children. Now, like Norman Osborn was hard on Harry Osborn, he was also hard on Sarah and Gabriel. At a young age, he was already trying to put in her mind that her life goal was to kill Spider-Man. Before we are able to learn more about those times, she cuts off the story and asks Peter to not ask her any more information because it is too much for her at this point. We get another page where we once again see Sarah on the phone with someone, but we learn that apparently there is someone named Dupree's. This is someone Sarah's brother Gabriel owes money to and apparently is looking to be paid back. The problem is that Gabriel had disappeared after Spider-Man had fought Gabriel as the Grey Goblin. So Dupree's wants Sarah to pay back her brother's debt. But of course, she is telling us that she doesn't want to. We then get a set of pages that show us Aunt May and Mary Jane talking about how Peter went to Paris to see Sarah. Except for Mary Jane, she thinks that she should go to Paris as well because she thinks that Peter may leave her. Since Sarah does look just like Gwen Stacy, since Peter will always love Gwen Stacy, to Mary Jane, this could be the thing that Peter Parker always wanted. Another chance to be with Gwen Stacy. So Mary Jane leaves to go save her marriage. Then randomly, we get a set of pages that show us Peter Parker and Sarah Stacy out in Paris enjoying the city. It is their kind of bonding, but the bonding session is different for the both of them. You will see what I mean as we go forward with this book. There are some moments like Sarah being confronted by some random guy, which makes Peter Parker wonder who that guy was. Except while they are hanging out, we see that someone is watching them. Now things begin to get somewhat interesting because once you have Sarah and Peter go to the subway, you have Sarah leave Peter for a hot second so that she can meet up with one of her friends. This friend is here to give her more meds for her headaches and warn her to be scared of Dupree's. some of the members of Dupree's group shows up, which is here to make her pay for her brother's debt, except these thugs took her meds that she needs, so she is going to fight them now. Of course, with Sarah fighting these guys, the noise then tells Peter Parker that something is going on. Of course, he finds out that it is Sarah, so he grabs her and leaves the scene. They are finally able to catch a train, but this train part is actually important because it helps us understand a little bit more why Sarah wants Peter around so much, because she begins to imagine things, that the people on the train are talking about her and how she wants Peter Parker because she is a tad bit lonely, which makes her want to get off the train and go somewhere else. The last set of pages for chapter 2 is where we see Sarah telling Peter some kind of story where it kind of speaks about how there were two people who were brought together by horrible reasons, making it seem like some messed up love story, which is telling us that maybe Sarah is in love with Peter or is trying to make him fall in love with her. Either way, when she goes away to make a call, that is when we see someone is about to take a sniper shot at Peter Parker. So of course, we see that Peter Parker is able to save Sarah and being able to swing over to where the sniper was at. Sadly though, the person is not there anymore. But while Peter Parker was at the sniper spot, Sarah was able to find the sniper while he was packing up, and it seems that maybe she killed this person. We didn't see Mary Jane arriving at the airport, but the problem is that she has no idea where to go. She does not speak French, so that means she is basically stuck in the airport bathroom. Then we see Sarah and Peter walking around in some kind of tunnel that was able to let Sarah and Gabriel leave the mansion anytime they wanted to. Except this is the moment you have Peter telling Sarah that he is tired of her not telling him everything, and he is demanding that she tells him everything he needs to know, which of course Sarah realized she needs to start talking. But we jump back over to Mary Jane. We see that she met someone who knows English and tells her that he can help her. This guy name is Luke. I think it's Luke. Luke. This guy is really here for Marvel's teasing the idea of Mary Jane leaving Peter Parker. You will see what I mean here in a minute. Except we see that someone is trying to chase down the taxi Mary Jane and Luke is in. We finally get back to Sarah and Peter Parker, where we see them talking about who has been after them for the last few pages. She begins her story telling us that a long time ago, she met a guy named Bruce. Bruce was the original person supplying Sarah and Gabriel pills. Now, it wasn't them using Norman Osborn's money to get the pills, since Norman wasn't giving them money anyway. They had to do jobs for Bruce, but then Bruce disappeared. So that let Dupree step in to take over Bruce's drug ring. But Dupree had connections to a group called the Black Hand, organizing crime. Sarah and Gabriel tried not to work for Dupree, but they needed the pills so badly. So they began to work with him, except when it came to one big job, Gabriel tried to take the drugs that were given to him for a job so that he could resell the drugs to make more money. Of course, explains the debt he owns to Dupree and why Dupree have been coming after Sarah and Peter. The problem is that no one has seen Gabriel since he was defeated as the Grey Goblin. This leads into the worst moment of the book and had people wondering if Marvel was trying to have Peter leave Mary Jane for Sarah, because around this time, a lot of higher-ups hated that Spider-Man and Mary Jane were married and tried to find a way to end the marriage. The reason why I'm bringing this up now is because Mary Jane is able to arrive at the home Sarah grew up in. Well, she walks into a room and sees that Sarah is kissing Peter Parker. Now, it wasn't Peter Parker kissing Sarah back. He was trying to cheer Sarah up and she took it the wrong way. This leads into Peter explaining to Sarah that he meant he liked her as a sister, not like a future replacement to Mary Jane. So he leaves the room to chase down Mary Jane to explain, except you have to remember that Peter lied to Mary Jane about where he was at or where he was staying at and not having the hotel's number that he was supposed to stay at. So right now, it seems that he lied to basically get close to Sarah because she looks like Gwen Stacy. But while that was going on, you had the story reveal that Sarah knew where her brother was at this whole time. She has him locked up in some room, but the problem is that he is having some kind of memory loss. He does not remember Sarah, his own sister. So we see her declare that she's going to figure out how to help her brother. First, stopping Dupree's from coming after them and also finding a way to help him regain his lost memory. And you think that Peter should go check up on Mary Jane, but he doesn't. See, he goes to see if Sarah is okay, only to find out that she is not in the room anymore. But he sees shattered glass on the ground, and that makes him worry. So he changes back into his Spider-Man outfit so he can go find Sarah. But then we have to wonder what happened to Mary Jane. Well, we see that she went on a dinner date with Luke, the guy she met at the airport who helped her get around town since she was lost. Now, this does seem that at first, maybe she is quickly moving on from Peter and Luke is going to be the new guy for her. Except she realized that maybe she overreacted. Even though Peter is at fault for all of this, she should have listened to her husband and let him explain. She knows he's a good guy. So she leaves Luke behind at the dinner, especially when she finds out that Luke is married and he cheats on his wife. Real quick, getting back to Spider-Man, the same car we saw earlier watching Sarah and Peter at the house, well, Spider-Man saw it too. And since it has been there 3 days of this guy watching them, Spider-Man wants answers. And this guy says he works for Interpol and his name is Francus? I want to say it's Francus. Where this agent of Interpol tells Spider-Man that he may have an idea where Spider-Man can find Sarah. While Spider-Man is doing that, Mary Jane is seen going back to the old home of Sarah and Gabriel, hoping to find Peter and Sarah there. Except, of course, she doesn't since they both are gone. But what she does find is Gabriel, the brother that went missing. But we now know Sarah was hiding him. Of course, Gabriel is not thinking straight and begins the process of attacking Mary Jane. Now, this is important because you would think that Gabriel would attack Mary Jane and try to kill her, except he doesn't, because this is Gabriel thinking that Mary Jane is actually his sister Sarah, which is funny because there is no kind of resemblance between the two characters, but this man thinks that, so to save Mary Jane's life, she will let it be. We do pick up with Spider-Man, who we see him right now hanging out with the Interpol agent who tells Spider-Man how Interpol has a file on everyone. But of course, he begins to tell Spider-Man why Interpol is keeping an eye on Gabriel and Sarah because of their connection to the Black Hand, that criminal organization that Dupree's works for. Dupree's being the guy Gabriel used to work for. The reason why Interpol brought Spider-Man here to the police department or the Interpol department is because they think that Sarah is going to deal with Dupree's. You have the Interpol agent tell Spider-Man that he should be worried about Sarah because the way this agent talks about Dupree's home, it is a fortress that is heavily protected. So for the Interpol agent, she could end up dead, but Spider-Man knows that Sarah will be okay, only because the powers and training she had received from Norman Osborn. You then have Spider-Man get word about what is happening at the home of Sarah and Gabriel from another Interpol agent, which makes Spider-Man wonder who else could be in the house. The other agent tells him it is Mary Jane because they kept eyes on her in the place, except they have no idea who the other person is, which Spider-Man was able to find out that it has to be Gabriel, meaning that Sarah knew this whole time where Gabriel was at. But Spider-Man leaves to save Mary Jane and tells Interpol to go help Sarah. We actually see Sarah breaking into the base of Dupree's because she is planning on killing him. With the power she had received from Norman Osborn, she is able to go through all of his guards like they were nothing. Of course, this means that once she is able to make it to the room where Dupree's is hiding at, well, now comes the moment where we wonder if she is going to kill him or just scare him enough to make him stop coming after her and her brother as well. We then jump back to Spider-Man, and just like the last time Gabriel and Sarah had showed him in the story, Gabriel turned into the Green Goblin and fought against Spider-Man. But this time, Gabriel is just a man whose mind is not working correctly and begins to fight against Spider-Man. This fight goes on back and forth for a while, where you have Spider-Man trying to stop Gabriel, except Mary Jane was able to convince Gabriel that Mary Jane is not his sister, and he just leaves to come back for another horrible story. We then jump back to Spider-Man finding the base of Dupree's so that he is able to stop Sarah from killing Dupree's. He doesn't want to see her go down that dark road as a killer. We see Spider-Man being able to convince her that what she is thinking about doing could change her and have some horrible consequences down the road. So she puts down the gun and then lets the Interpol agents take Dupree's away, and everything seems okay. The book begins to wind down with Sarah Stacy saying goodbye to Peter and Mary Jane because she is going to leave with Interpol. She is going to help Interpol take down the Black Hand Crime organization. She tells Peter that she is sorry for kissing him and that she understands that he only cares for her as a sister. So she tells him that she cares for him like a brother. Mary Jane and her are on good terms again, but she leaves again to never be seen again in Marvel Comics until like 15, 16 years. Honestly, it is for the better because people really did not like this character. The book closes with Mary Jane and Peter Parker going back home to America, and with their relationship being intact. We never see Sarah for a long time, and there is one more story where Gabriel comes back, except this is the end of this horrible sequel that no one asked for. No one asked for this. Everybody hated Since Past. Nobody wanted to see Sarah Stacy and Gabriel Stacy, but sadly we got them back. This is trash. Lordy. And this is where we are going to end today's video. So hit that like button down below and subscribe. But I do hope you enjoyed today's video.